It's game day again for the Arizona Coyotes. They got one more road game before returning home this weekend. They are up against the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. I am joined by Locked On Blue Jackets host Jay Forster on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes, so be sure to stay locked in.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's another Blue Jackets game day. It's another Locked On Blue Jackets squadcast. And today we've got Locked On Coyotes here to tell us all about how the Coyotes are doing. And honestly, this might make Blue Jackets fans feel a little bit better about the shaky start that our team has had. But we've got Robyn of Locked On Coyotes here to talk all about her team of terrible children. So how are we feeling about the season so far, Robyn?
Oh, man, it's brutal out there. The Coyotes, we knew the Coyotes were going to be bad this year, but so far, the way they started the season is just very, very frustrating. I mean, they have one win, but outside of that, it's just looked really bad. And, tank for Bedard. That's all they're at right now.
And I mean, in fairness, and this is something we talked about a little bit off mic, if you have one win and it's against a team, having one win against the Maple Leafs has got to be pretty funny.
It is, and it's really funny given the fact that, obviously there's the Austin Matthews connection and the Matthew Nice connection, and, with, them being Scottsdale natives and then, now under contract or playing for the Maple Leafs, make that joke. But also the fact that, Toronto loves to make fun of the Coyotes in any opportunity they can. And for Arizona to beat them, it's just like, hey, you know what? Shut up.
Yeah, it's just super, super satisfying. And I love that one of the guys that we're going to talk about first, leading the team in goals, Nick Ritchie, former Toronto Maple Leaf, I believe, opened the scoring in that game. He's got 3 goals in 5 games so far for the Coyotes. Is this what you expected, or is he just having a real kind of revenge season?
I think it is a little bit of what I expected. I think it was not as much to an extent, but he ended the year last year really looking on a really good note. He kept getting those points. He kept doing really well. I think what was started working differently is the way that, he was implemented into the power play. I think the power play in general for the Coyotes has improved significantly since the last year. I think now they have a new power play coach, and that makes a big difference, obviously. And it's shown. And it's funny, as you've said, he has 3 goals. All three of those goals are in the same exact pattern in terms of on the power play, with the primary assist from Shane Gottsberg and the secondary assist from JJ Mosier. It's the exact same.
God, sometimes hockey is weird like that. But I want to talk about Shane Gottsberg as well, actually, because he's currently leading the team. He's got 5 points in 5 games. I was really surprised when he basically got ceremoniously kicked out of Philadelphia. They sent him to Arizona, because I've always been a big Gottsberg fan, and it looks like he's kind of refound his game a little bit with the Coyotes, especially when you look at the defenseman the healthy defenseman that the Coyotes have at the minute. Like, it really seems like it's just Shane Gottsberg and a mix of children and Mark Donks, So how's he been? Is he a guy that you foresee staying here in the future? Obviously, his contract is up after the end of this season. Do you think he's a guy that they can keep around and continue to utilize?
Yeah, Gottsberg has been an extreme bright point for the Coyotes ever since he came from Philadelphia last season. I think that improvement that he's made and everything he's done for the franchise just so far is amazing. He's had that amazing comeback. I think because of how well he's playing, now his asset value has increased significantly. As much as I'd love to see him be part of the future with the Coyotes, with this, as they, can navigate this rebuild, if his value just continues to go up, I really think that he's just going to go ahead and eventually get traded sometime before the deadline. Because again, the Coyotes are trying to focus on assets, making sure they can build the team for the long term future. And like, we'll see what if he fits in or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up getting traded this season.
Yeah, he does feel kind of like trade deadline bait a little bit. But I mean, the Coyotes have got to keep some people. But I think the future for the Coyotes is really bright. The Blue Jackets know the 2021 draft very well. They've got Kent Johnson from that draft. They've got Cole Sillinger from that draft. The Coyotes traded quite a big price to get a pick in that draft, and that pick ended up being Dylan Guenther. How's he doing? He's got 2 points in 4 games. Is he heating up? Do you think he's about to, just everything's going to click? Is he maybe a dark horse for the Calder? What do you think about Dylan Guenther so far?
I don't like. So I think Dylan Guenther. I don't think he's gonna survive these first few games. I think he's getting his feet wet up here in the NHL before they send him back down. Send him back to the WHL, because I think the Coyotes are gonna be like, look, you're great. Honestly, you are fantastic. There's nothing really we feel like you definitely need to work on. Like, you are fantastic. He has been an extreme bright point. But what the Coyotes are focusing on is rebuilding this year, and not rushing any of their prospects. So they're they don't want to put Dylan Guenther through a bad team like this, right? So like, might as well like not waste a contract year on him and just kind of focus on the future. And then that's when Logan Cooley or Connor Geeky can also come into place. But I really like Dylan Guenther. I think, like I said, I think he's gonna be an amazing asset for the future. He just probably is gonna get sent down within the next week.
At Locked On Blue Jackets, we love to talk about goalies. This is a goalie-friendly show. I will talk about goalies for any length of time. So I figured let's check in with the Coyotes, who have kind of an interesting goalie tandem this season. I think is probably the best way to put it. I'm a big fan of Vermelka. I think he's a good goalie on a team that, like I said, the defense is just not there yet. Are we expecting him to start in tonight's game? And how's he looked so far this season? His stats aren't necessarily there, but I think, especially with goalies on bad teams, it's hard to really get a good look at how they've been looking just at the base stats that the NHL provides.
Yeah, there is definitely the expectation that Krove Melka is going to be the starter for this game. I don't know how much stock I'm going to put into Connor Ingram yet. Obviously he's only played one game with Arizona, and that one game was not good at all against Montreal. And so it's just like, okay, like, maybe have him work on some stuff and have Vimelka work on some stuff. But the problem is Vimelka hasn't looked that great this season either. And I think the problem is that Vimelka needed a tandem to kind of help him push and kind of work on his own game. Last year he had that, for the majority of the season, or more than half of the season, he had Scott Wedgwood. And Scott Wedgwood was that perfect tandem that kind of helped push him, and Wedgwood had his own good games in case he really ever needed it. And like I said, I can't put too much stock in Connor Ingram, and because of that, I don't think either of them have enough confidence to, build a really good game. I hope I'm wrong, because Vimelka last year had some really awesome games in which I think he had 45, 50 save games. Like, he was freaking unbelievable. I think one of them included was a game against the Maple Leafs. One was like in a game against the Winnipeg Jets, and they just looked great. He would just stand on his head, and I loved it. I want to see more from him. I just haven't seen it yet.
So we've talked about some bright spots for the Coyotes. Goes to spare Guenther, who probably will play 9 games and then get sent to wherever he came from. Who else has been? Is there any other kind of bright spots in the roster that you think, hey, this could be a good year?
Yeah, I think one thing is, while he might not be so much on the score sheet, I have really enjoyed watching Matias Michelli. Right, he came up. I think he's playing a little bit more. I saw him a decent amount with the Tucson Roadrunners last year, and every time he made an impact, he like I got a chance to see a good view of that. And now he's doing the same thing, just the sheer presence that he makes on the ice. He's in the right spots. He's doing the right things. And he's only 22 years old. And I'm like, this kid is gonna be good. We'll see how he develops this year, but we know he's gonna be a bright spot.
Awesome. Lots of bright spots for the Coyotes, I think. They just have to get there. Blue
Mm-hmm.
Jackets fans know extremely well the pain of a rebuild, so hopefully the Coyotes are kind of on the way up. But in a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Blue Jackets, and we're going to flip the script on this. And Robyn's going to ask me some questions about the Blue Jackets. I don't know if Locked On Coyotes fans know, but they had kind of a big off season, so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But right now, Robyn's going to tell you all about one of our sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to let you guys know that I run a busy schedule, which means sometimes I admittedly don't have all the time to get all the daily nutrition and vitamins that I need for the day, which is why I'm glad I'm able to turn to AG1 from Athletic Greens into your one-stop shop of more than 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. Just one scoop of this special blend, and you're on your way to improve and support your gut health, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. And the best of all, it costs less than $3 a day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, there's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. Now, let's Jay, let's flip the script, right?
I am an open book. The Blue Jackets had kind of a busy off season. They've had a pretty eventful start to the season, so lots for Coyotes fans to learn about in this going into this matchup.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of different things you can that we can address on this, and I think the biggest one is the off-season acquisition of Johnny Gaudreau, because Blue Jackets made a lot of noise with that one, right? It's just everyone was talking about where he's going to go. Obviously, if any Coyotes fans thought he was going to come anywhere near this West Coast, no, I don't. You guys were mistaken. But tell us about that acquisition and the impact that he's made in just this first couple of weeks.
Man, well, the acquisition first off has changed this franchise. I feel like every time someone asks me about Johnny Gaudreau, and someone asks me about Johnny Gaudreau, I'm always like, listen, he's changed this team on and off the ice. Off on the ice, he's got 7 points in his first 7 games. That's pretty much what we expect from Johnny Gaudreau and then some. And I don't think he's done yet. Missing Patrick Laine on that other wing is obviously a huge loss. And when he comes back, I think Gaudreau's only going to get better. But for me, the big thing is the respect that he's put on the name of the Blue Jackets around the league. Because I feel like a lot of people, I fully assumed, I was like, well, he's going to go to Philly. And then Philly decided to give all their cap space to Rasmus Ristolainen instead, which is, they're allowed to do that. It's their cap space, but it's a weird choice. Then I was like, well, he's going to go to New Jersey. And then, there was some rumblings that he was going to go to Columbus. And I was like, this is exactly like the Taylor Hall free agency of a couple of years ago. We're going to get our hopes up, and then he's going to sign somewhere else. And we're going to go into this season, and he's going to not be a Blue Jacket. And then he signed with the Blue Jackets. And I was like, this is incredible, amazing. I think the thing for me is now there are a lot of fans and maybe even players that are kind of looking at the Columbus and being like, man, does Johnny Gaudreau know something we don't about this team or this city? And it only takes one. And I think now that Johnny Gaudreau has chosen to come here, leaving money on the table in New Jersey, leaving money on the table in Calgary, I think I wouldn't be surprised if next offseason there's a lot more chatter about Columbus being a potential destination for free agents. They have no cap space right now, so we can't sign anyone, but I think there's going to be I think Columbus might be starting to turn into one of those places where people are always like, hey, Columbus is an option for basically everyone. Great city. If the team continues to grow as it is, they've had kind of a shaky start to the season, but they're starting to smooth things out. We've had some injury issues. That's not helped. But yeah, Johnny Gaudreau feels like a big piece in Columbus becoming a real talking point in this league, which as a fellow person who covers a small market, like, how important that is to
Right.
get people to pay attention to your team, so he's done that and more, in my opinion.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think the Coyotes would love to hear about and take a look at too when it comes to the Blue Jackets is paying attention to the way the Blue Jackets drafted in the last few years, because they had like the Coyotes are in a unique situation. I think that only I think the recent Blue Jackets would be able to understand, in the sense where they have a crap ton of draft picks. I know the Blue Jackets did the same thing, and they've been making some moves. What can the Coyotes learn from the way the Blue Jackets have drafted in the last few years?
I think that the thing for me is patience. I mean, the Blue Jackets have had, in the last 2 drafts, they had 5 first-round picks. The only one of the first 3 that made it to the NHL was Cole Sillinger. He was drafted 12th overall, and I don't think anyone, including the team, the player, or the coach, went out of that draft thinking, yeah, Cole Sillinger is going to be on this roster to start the season. And then he just made a case. He just was like, yeah, I'm not going to give you a reason to send me. So there was a weird quirk where he could have gone down to the AHL despite not being 20 because of where he played the season before due to COVID. So I was like, yeah, he's probably going to play his 9 games with the Blue Jackets and then go down to the Monsters. He wasn't going to go back to the WHL. He wasn't going to go back to the USHL, but he just kept playing. And he just kept playing and playing and playing, and he played his 9 games. And they sent William Eklund back from San Jose. They sent Mason McTavish back to the OHL from Anaheim, and he just kept playing. But he's really an outlier in this. Kent Johnson, drafted 5th overall, and they also had Corson Ceulemans, both college players. They both went back to college. Kent Johnson signed his ELC this year. Corson Ceulemans went back and did his junior year at Wisconsin. They drafted 2 more players in the first round of this draft, but there's no hurry to push them to the NHL. It's like you say with Dylan Genther, it's very much the team would probably be better if David Jiricek was on the team, but they don't need to rush him to the NHL. He's down in the AHL right now. He, I believe, just had a 2-assist night with the Monsters. He's really kind of coming along. But even beyond the first round picks, they're not in a hurry to push their guys to the NHL or even to the AHL. They're happy to let them stay in college. They're happy to let them stay in Canada, in the OHL or the CHL or the WHL, QMJHL, whatever. They're happy to let them stay in Europe because they don't need them right now. And I think that's a key thing of Jarmo Kekalainen's tactic that I think not a lot of teams understand, is he's perfectly happy for a player to stay where they are until there's really no other choice. I mean, we saw it with, for example, Elvis Merzlikins was a draft pick. He then played, I believe, the next 4 or 5 years. He just stayed in Switzerland. He didn't come over to the United States. Kirill Marchenko, another guy, Russian. He's 23, 24, and he's just making his North American debut this season. It's patience. And that's, I think, the key is it's easy to take a step in a rebuild and then be like, oh, the team's better than it was last year. Let's push all of the kids on. Let's rush their development. Let's try and make the playoffs. I think the playoffs are a goal for the Blue Jackets this season, but I don't think it's a gimme, because they still have a lot of flaws in their roster. But the thing the Coyotes need to remember, I think, is even if they are better this year than they were last year, Last year, they were just god-awful. So the bar is real low, and that's not necessarily hey, the Coyotes are a 70-point team instead of a 60-point team, or however many points they had last season. Don't rush it. If Dylan Guenther needs to go back to the WHL for another season, that's fine. If he goes to the Roadrunners and stays there for a season or two, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Don't ruin your players' development by putting good players in the NHL when you don't need them to.
Yeah, the previous regime of the Coyotes made that mistake, and Carl and I have been talking about that multiple times, right, to make sure we don't make that mistake. So it's good to hear, a host of another, of another show, someone who's been drafting to discuss the very same thing that we've been saying. Is don't rush it.
And I think that the thing that always comes to me is to kind of just finish that thought is look at Aaron Ekblad, for example. Phenomenal player, genuinely phenomenal defenseman, deserved to go 1 overall in that draft. Probably should not have gone straight into the NHL because I do think Florida was bad enough and poorly coached enough that it did ruin his development. And I do wonder what Aaron Ekblad would be like now had he been able to stay. I believe he was with the Barrie Colts for his junior career. If he'd stayed there for even another year, what his career would have been like. I don't think he's had a bad career thus far, but I do wonder just how good he could have been if they hadn't rushed him straight to the NHL. So, cautionary tale.
Absolutely. And I guess one other thing that I would love to ask about in general is just is it if there's anybody else on this Blue Jackets roster that, has been a bright spot for you guys?
Yeah. Well, I have a really easy answer for this. Unfortunately, the New York Rangers broke him in Sunday's game. So last season, Ken Johnson signed his ELC from the University of Michigan, but he was not the only University of Michigan player to come to Columbus at that time. They also signed their captain, Nick Blankenburg, as a college free agent. He did his 4 years at University of Michigan, and then the Blue Jackets liked what they saw. They signed him. I thought he had a fantastic debut last season. I think he played 8 games at the end of last season. Was a healthy scratch for the first 3 games of this season, which the Blue Jackets all lost. 4th game, Blue Jackets are 0-3. They're like, hey, let's take a defenseman out. Let's put Blankenburg in. Let's see what he can do. And he has been phenomenal. He's been our best defenseman, which I think is really saying something when you think, okay, well, they've got Zach Werenski, who's making $9.5 million. Eric Branson's being paid $4 million. Nick Blankenburg is doing what I want from those 2 players, and he's doing it for less than $1 million. He probably won't be playing in tonight's game, but he's been the real bright spark for me. He's exactly what you want from a defenseman, despite, I think he's officially listed as 5'9". I do not believe that he is 5'9". 5'9" in skates, maybe. But the Blue Jackets have had some success with small players before. And I mean, you look at Johnny Gaudreau, who dropped to the 4th round because he was considered too small. So I think I don't know that Nick Blankenburg is going to turn into a Johnny Gaudreau level elite player, but as an undrafted free agent defenseman who is 5'9", he's giving everything that they could ask him to and more. And it's a real shame that he got injured in Sunday's game because he's been their best defenseman for sure, maybe their best player in the 4 games that he played before he got injured.
Absolutely. That's all. I think that's all the questions I have for Columbus. I think we can get ready to make some predictions in a little bit, but I think we should also encourage some people to listen to another show that we have on our Locked On network.
Yeah, we have a brand new show this season at Locked On NHL. First of all, we got to thank you for making Locked On Blue Jackets or Locked On Coyotes your first listen every day. And so you should go make your second listen at Game to Game NHL. It's got every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. So make sure you follow Game to Game. That is game number 2 game on Locked On NHL on YouTube or podcast version. It's available on the Audacy app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. And you can catch up on all the NHL news that you need to in one 20-minute bite. So that is Game to Game. And speaking of games, let's have some fun with tonight's game because I always like to make some weird predictions. And I know, Robyn, you like to bring one of our longtime sponsors into the show. So let's start off with that. Let's do some talk about Bet Online, because as I was saying before the show, I know just enough about sports betting to make me dangerous. But let's take a look at the odds for tonight's game and see who's the underdog. Maybe we'll put some money, try and make some money on tonight's game.
Absolutely. So far, my luck has not been doing great so far with these betting games because the Coyotes are just doing whatever they've been doing. But the trends, I think I got it this time. There is no puck line available for this game yet. There's no spread, but the money line is -215 in favor of Columbus, with the total points set for over under at 6.5 points, which honestly surprises me, Jay, because at this point, with the way the Coyotes have been playing, like I think the total points should be like 9.5 points. Like,
Yeah, I saw that 6.5 over under spread and was like over. Immediately over. The Blue Jackets, I think, have allowed at least 3 goals in every game except one. And I don't believe there's been a game with less than 6 goals for like over between two teams
yeah,
since the season started. Obviously, the Coyotes are in a little bit of a worse spot than that. I believe they've allowed 6
yeah,
goals every game but one.
they've
But
allowed 6 goals in every game but one. That one game was the game against Toronto. In every game they have played, at least 6 goals have been scored total because the game against Toronto was a 4-2 final score. Um, so like 6.5, like yeah, that's if you are a betting person, like I think that based off the trends and how where these two teams have been, like if you're not picking over, it's just ridiculous at this point.
yeah, like it's 6.5 goals. Like pick the under in the first period, maybe, but I would be really surprised. I think we're gonna get into football score territory with these two teams. The Blue Jackets are not super great defensively and haven't been. The Coyotes are trying real hard, I think, and not necessarily coming up as strong as they should. Which makes the predictions for this game kind of fun. So I've been asking, I've been doing these squadcasts or I've been doing solo game previews. So let's do some predictions. What do you think the final score is going to be, and who's going to be the game winner?
Ooh, that's gonna be a good one. So I'm gonna give the final score on this one. Uh, I'm gonna say it's gonna be 6-3, and it's gonna be in favor of Columbus.
Yeah, that's a. I was thinking I was going to be kinder to the Coyotes. I think it's probably going to be, I think 5-3 in favor of Columbus, maybe 5-2, depending on if Columbus can keep the penalty kill strong. But let's before we finish up with one final prediction, what are the keys to the game? If Arizona can in fact pull out a win against a Blue Jackets team, how do you think they're going to do it? What do Blue Jackets fans have to keep an eye out for on this Arizona team?
Well, the biggest key for Arizona is going to be starting off. In every single game they've played out so far, they have had an extremely slow start. It seems that they're just kind of just like, warming up. Like, be hot to start off this game. If you don't do that, you're going to be in for some massive trouble. And I've been saying about this all the time about the Coyotes, so they need a hot start.
Yeah, I think the keys for the game for the Blue Jackets is going to be special teams. The Blue Jackets have yet to score a power play goal officially. They have one power play goal, but the NHL won't acknowledge it. They are currently last in the league in power plays with 0% conversion rate, but they're 8th on the penalty kill. So if they can keep that penalty kill up, maybe score a power play goal, it could go real well for the Blue Jackets. However, I do think we need to note that the Coyotes have a pretty hot power play right now.
Yeah.
They are, I want to say, 6th or 8th in the league in power play effectiveness, which I guess shout out to, like we said earlier, Nick Ritchie and his 3 power play goals. Yeah, the Coyotes are 8th in the league on the power play right now, so that could get interesting. The 8th best power play versus the 8th best penalty kill. So that's, I think, going to be my key to the game is going to be special teams. Let's finish off by doing one more prediction. Who is going to open the scoring for the Coyotes?
Who's going to open the scoring for the
Who's going to
Coyotes?
score
That's
the
a
first
good one.
goal for the Coyotes?
You know, I really want to see That's a good one. I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be Dylan Gunther. He had his first goal of the season over the week against Ottawa. You know, I think he's gonna take that momentum into this game and gonna open the scoring.
Yeah. The Blue Jackets love to let players score their first NHL goals on them. So obviously he's already got one, but someone who's only got one goal on the season, I think that seems just about right for the Blue Jackets to be like, hey, let's give this guy some stats padding. I think I'm gonna bet. I'm gonna go for the easy bet here. I'm gonna say Johnny Gaudreau. He hasn't scored in a couple games. I feel like he's overdue. His 5-game point streak ended against the Rangers, so I reckon he is primed and ready to get back on the score sheet. So I'm gonna say he's gonna open the scoring for the Blue Jackets, and that's I think everything that we've got for you guys today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Coyotes your first listen of the day every day, or your first watch of the day. If you are a Locked On Blue Jackets listener and you want to learn a little bit more about the Coyotes, either before the game, after the game, where can they find you and your show, Robyn?
Yeah, you can find Locked On Coyotes wherever you get your podcasts. We're on the Audacy app. For anyone who likes local news at all, we're also on the 12 News app, KPNX 12 News here in Phoenix. Also on social media, facebook.com/Locked On Coyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes.
And you can find Locked On Blue Jackets wherever you get Locked On Coyotes. We are LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. You can find me over at _Jacob Forster, JAKOBFORSTER. If you want some pictures of the food I'm eating on vacation, or some Star Wars opinions mixed in with your hockey, then that's the place to go. You can find Locked On Blue Jackets. I already said that. You can find it on YouTube, on Audacy, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Blue Jackets and Locked On Coyotes is there for you. On tomorrow's show, I am almost definitely going to recap this game. I assume that the Locked On Coyotes show will be doing a game recap as well. So make sure you check both of those out. Make sure you check out Game to Game, because that started off yesterday with our first show. So make sure you check that out to get league news from around all of the conferences. And until tomorrow, from me and Robyn, make sure you stay locked on.